Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, and I believe that the right book at the right time can change lives, and that all readers should read children's literature, especially adults. So, that's what we do here on the KidLit Love podcast. We celebrate all things children's literature: picture books, early readers, middle grade, and young adult novels for readers of all ages. In each episode, we'll talk with children's literature authors and discuss their books, their hopes, their dreams for readers, their writing process, and much, much more. Whether you're an adult reading to their inner child or connecting the young readers in your life with fantastic books, you've come to the right place. So grab a notebook to build your TBR, and let's get to today's episode of KidLit Love. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the KidLit Love podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, your KidLit loving host, inviting you back to another bookish conversation with a children's literature author. Today, I'm talking with Huda Al-Marashi. Huda writes both for children and adults. She's the co-author of the middle grade novel Grounded and the author of First Comes Marriage, my not-so-typical American love story. She's here today to talk about her newest release, Hail Mariam. This is a heartfelt and humorous interfaith coming-of-age story that follows Mariam as she navigates the challenges of being the only Muslim student at her Catholic school. It balances faith, family, and friendship, and it's everything you would want in a middle grade novel. I can't wait to talk with her all about it, so let's get right to the episode. Huda, welcome to KidLit Love. I'm so glad to chat with you today.
Hi, Stephanie. I'm so happy to be here.
I am thrilled to welcome you, and I cannot wait to talk about this novel. I mentioned it is everything you want to read and feel and experience in a middle grade novel. It is one that I'm going to keep close to my heart for a long time. I know many listeners will too. But before we get there, talking about the book, of course want to talk about you. And I'm hoping you'll give us a little bit of your backstory and your journey through children's literature to the book that we're celebrating today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the kind words about the book. I am so excited to talk about it with you. My journey to children's literature is a story in itself because, as you mentioned, I didn't start in children's literature. I started writing for adults and I wrote primarily creative nonfiction. So even making the leap to fiction was a little bit of a jump for me. And I wrote primarily about, being a first generation daughter of immigrants. I wrote about the experience of being in diaspora, and those themes of identity have been the through line. It's what I wrote about in creative nonfiction, and it's what I'm writing about here. But what took me to children's literature is I just felt that the conversations that I wanted to have needed to start younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a huge motivation for me to even just become a writer in the first place was this desperate need to address the terrible stereotypes. I cut my teeth as a writer in the early 2000s. I was really speaking to that post 9/11 culture. And then I'm an Iraqi American, and I was very troubled by the Iraq war, and I just wanted to put a human face on the Iraqi American experience. And what I found when I was out in the world with adult pieces is when you're talking to adults, a lot of their ideas are very set. And so they brought all their stereotypes with them to what they were reading, and it was very hard to shift. And if they were already on the same page as you, yes, we were having incredible conversations, but I was really amazed by how little books can do at some point, which is really hard for book lovers, right? We
Yes, it is.
believe books can change the world, but when there's a lot of scaffolding in there, it has a lot more work to do. So I just wanted to be in the ground, in the conversation earlier on, and maybe start to help shift the scaffolding. And I realize the younger we are when we identify with a protagonist that's different than us, I think that it can really, that's where we can really create change.
Yeah.
And then children will continue to be able to empathize with protagonists. And then obviously, hopefully, the real extension is people that are different from them.
Yeah. That just resonates into the very fiber of my being and of my belief of my work with books. As so I'm a university educator. I teach children's literature. And as part of that work, we are always writing statements. We need a teaching statement and a philosophy statement and, all these statements. And the statement that I wrote, which was trying to kind of get us to share what our thoughts were of equity and inclusion and all the things that we have to think about as educators. And I took a very different stance than the rest of my colleagues who are all researchers and very, very academic. And my statement said how I am who I am today, and I have these beliefs of what I have of kindness and all encompassing because I read children's literature. And it's specifically, I read children's literature as an adult that spoke to that inner child and reminded me what kids feel like and what a simple worldview, and I don't mean simple, that's maybe not the best word, but when it all boils down to it, it's quite simple, is that we're all here, and we're all good, and we're all connected. And that's what it is. And children's literature, I truly believe, is that special magic that even if you're reading it as an adult, it is hard not to feel in your heart. And so you are right. That is the mission that we all need to be on for sure.
I love that you've said that because I think the beauty of the coming of age, like middle grade novel for me, like what I was trying to do with Hail Mariam and what I love when I see it in other books is this transition of of moving from not knowing to a different kind of knowing.
Yes.
And that's the trajectory, right? So you're absolutely right. Like as an adult, it reminds us what the not knowing was
Yes.
and what ideas we picked up along the way. And it's so powerful and so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is why I will die on that hill of every adult needs to keep reading children's literature.
Yeah, no, a great argument for it is to
Yeah.
refresh your memory of what you knew and what you didn't know and what you picked up along the way, which maybe you shouldn't have picked up along the
Yeah,
way.
right. Yeah, it really is. It's a special time. And
Yeah,
thinking back to it allows us still to access all of that emotion that we had. Yeah.
absolutely.
So, Hail Mariam, do you mind if I read it's not a subtitle, but it is across the cover of the book, which is the most wonderful invitation, I think, into it. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
I love it too.
Yes, I love it. So listeners, right at the top of the book, which is this gorgeous cover with the character kind of hugging her books in front of this stained glass, and at the top it says the only Muslim girl in her Catholic school send prayers. And I thought, oh my goodness, this was such a perfect sentence, two sentences to put on there because there is this beautiful story and there's heart and there's hard things, but there's also lightness and friendship and middle gradeness. And that just captures both sides, like these competing things that we'll get into more, that one student has to deal with. So I just kudos for that opening line on there.
I don't take credit for it. It's the perfect tagline. It was the sales team at Coquila that came up with that. And they were looking for something that on the cover would give you the sense that there's some humor here too.
Yes, it's perfect.
And I think they nailed it. I think they did a great job. And they asked me for input too, and I didn't come up with this. Like I couldn't come up with anything quite as clever. So I love it. That's why I'm so happy that you read it and shared
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I knew that that's going to get listeners for sure.
Yeah.
But I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the book for the listeners who haven't read it yet, like I have. Give them a little background on what the book is about and the inspiration behind it.
So, Hail Mariam is the story of an Iraqi American girl like myself, and she's the only Muslim girl in her Catholic school, and she's in it. She's struggling with so many things and on so many levels. She's struggling with her faith. She's really trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong when she's swimming in a different faith tradition, what she allowed to do, what should she not do. She's struggling in her family structure. She definitely suffers from eldest daughter syndrome and takes on a little bit too much and hasn't quite learned yet what is okay to share with her parents and to trust them and ask for guidance. She's struggling in her friendships. She suffers from a desire to be teacher sunshine, and it creates a little bit of rivalry. And I think that's a dynamic that we forget that, like younger kids and young people desperately want to be loved by their teachers.
Yeah.
And she's
Yeah.
also carrying this tremendous burden of representation because she's the only Muslim girl in her school. She thinks she's representing her entire faith. So, in the course of the novel, we get to see her struggling with all of these identities and roles. And the inspiration is that it is pulled pretty much directly from my own experience.
Mhm.
I went to Catholic school in sixth grade. I was the only Muslim in my entire school. The difference is I continue to go on to Catholic school. I went to Catholic high school and I went to a Jesuit university, and the cumulative religious education just did so much for me. It
Mhm.
was a tremendous gift to study religion as a subject, not necessarily as just faith. And it allowed me to see the kind of human institutional components and patterns that are there. And I'm not talking about theological commonalities, right? I'm talking about just the things that humans do in faith systems was very transformative for me. And it was something that I thought could have great positive impact if I shared it with a younger audience so they can start having those conversations earlier. I think all too often we come to that awareness very late in our adult lives, if we come to that awareness at all.
Yeah.
And then there's great danger when we never come to that awareness and we never see the human hand in our faith systems. And we go around kind of fighting for things, arguing for things that we think are coming straight from a divine source, when it's actually a very human source that needs a lot more of critical analysis.
Mhm. Oh, I can relate to this because I have grown up Catholic as well. So I could very much relate to a lot of what was in the book. But when I grew up Catholic, you just kind of you do the thing because you're told to do the thing. And you believe the thing because your family believes the thing. And you don't always know the ins and outs and the hows and the whys and the bigger pictures behind them. For me, it's when I started learning about other religions, from various aspects of my life. That is when you start to reflect and you start to think and you start to make connections and you just have this better understanding. And at least in my opinion, the more I learn about multiple religions, and really, I think this applied to anything in life, really, the more you learn about the things that are different from you kind of realize that there's many things that are the same, right? That unite us as well. But when you are a middle schooler dealing with those very two different things and those contradictions, the question of, middle childhood is who am I and what am I going to be? And this is something that just, complicates that a bit. But she beautifully, and I don't like to give spoilers, so I'm like, what do I say and what do I not say? But through the ups and downs of those different areas that you talked about, in very wonderful middle grade style, she ends with an understanding and a blending, so to speak, that it's just a beautiful full circle kind of event with all of the things going on in her family, which like, there are lots more things I want to say, but I will start there. It was a dance and a balance for her and a reckoning, so to speak, within multiple systems. That was
Yeah,
just fascinating.
I love what you were saying, almost about learning like another faith and how it helped you start to understand your own
Mm.
better. And it feels like a kind of like bilingualism or a kind of literacy that, when you learn another language, you just have access to words that capture feelings and emotions that allow you to have these thoughts that you couldn't have in your own language, which limited you to only this kind of toolbox. And I think that's what moving between faith traditions can do for us as well, is introduce us to different concepts and ideas that do transcend and do help us clarify and do help us understand.
Mhm.
And it's all part of our human story as well, right? We're all served by understanding how other people across time have kind of looked at these big mysteries of the universe and answered the questions deep within their soul. And different faith traditions give us a window into that. It makes the conversation broader and wider.
Yeah. Yeah, and also as you mentioned, there is more than only religion. There are other, wonderful things that this book brings in. And I think for me as a reader, I was struck with this this sense of all the contradictions that Miriam had to work with. She's got in her faith, is it Catholic? Is it Muslim? How do you act in one sense? How do you act in the other? That was a very delicate and challenging balance for her. But then there was also, how do I act in this school or with this friend versus this friend and with this family and my mom versus my dad. There was so much of that every middle schooler tries to figure out, regardless if they are in that, religious situation. It brought it all the layers, but in a
Thank
very
you so much. No,
relatable story way.
right, right. I appreciate that you bringing back in those other elements because that's just, you know, I mean, the religious piece is kind of the premise, but it's not entirely the plot, right? Like that's the umbrella of the things that she's dealing with. But she is a middle school age child who is just trying to
Yes.
come of age and come of into her own and is really deep down struggling with uh deep need to please people,
Yes.
which is something I think that as adults that never come out of it, we can totally relate to it. I relate to it.
Um,
Yes, I still relate to
my
that,
hand is
right? Like
raised.
some of that good girl impulse never goes away. And early on in the book, she says the only thing I'm good at is being good.
Yeah.
And I I felt that in my core as a child. And I saw that even in my kids, like in this society, we put a lot of pressure on kids to be good at a thing.
Hmm.
And like even when your children go to the pediatrician, like they were kind of looking for a thing to connect to them with. And so it's like, hey, buddy, what do you do? And, not every kid has a thing that they do. And it can translate to this kind of like loss in their sense of self or identity, then and that's what Miriam's also trying to figure out, like, well, what am I good at? I don't fit in any particular
Yeah.
group. The one thing I do really well is being a good kid.
Yeah. Yeah, and through that process, I also like that she learns to gain a bigger perspective, right? Which is the goal of all of us in this life journey. But for a middle grader to, you know, be angry that her mom is always late picking her up at school, yet understanding maybe mom is trying and figuring out, how what you might think about one person in a situation might not actually be the whole truth, even in her friend group, other than Mrs. Peterson, who unfortunately is what she is. There is a bigger story to most of it, and that element was there as well, which I feel like is the way that we're going to build empathy for this whole entire world as we need it so much in those relationships.
Right. Like that's such an important part of coming of age is understanding that uh, other people have their own view and take on things that you may not have access to. And then they may be very good intentioned, but you just may not realize what they're thinking. And
Yes.
going back to what you were saying about her relationship with her Mom, I really needed to introduce the grandmother character
Yes.
in order to give Miriam a way to see where some of this comes from. That how her mother is with her is so tied to how her grandmother
Yeah.
was with her mother,
Mhm.
and that gave me the opportunity to kind of show the trajectory of how these things pass on through generations, and then in contrast she can see how her mom actually is trying to do better.
Yes.
That allows her to see the progress.
Yes. That was a powerful piece for me to read as an adult reader who has three children, one of whom is a daughter. I stayed there in those moments and just, thought of my own situation, my own mother, my own self, my own daughter, which is something that middle grade readers obviously may not do, but as an adult reading this, as we said in the beginning, we need these books just as much. We need these perspectives just as much. And remembering it as a child and remembering what that feels like, that you gave me new perspective on the relationships that I have as a result of reading your book. And that's going to happen for readers for sure.
Thank you. I really did want this book, and I hope this book will be read but with parents and children.
Yeah.
I really wanted it to spark conversation. I don't care what kind of conversation, people ended up having about their faith and family systems, but I hoped that some of the conversations that I put in there between the parents and Miriam might spark something in somebody else's household,
Yeah.
where to give them space to kind of ask the bigger questions. Miriam has a lot of misbeliefs that don't align with her parents' worldview of faith and religion. They're a lot more flexible than she is, but she's come away with this certain understanding. And I was hoping to, if I could mirror those kind of conversations, that maybe I could also clue in some caregivers that you may think something is coming across to your child, but the nuance might be getting lost somewhere. Like Miriam asks one question at the end, like she said, I just want to know, what do I have to do for God and what do I have to do for my mom and my grandma?
Yes. Yes. Yes, which another powerful part. And there she's thinking about her mom and her grandma and she's navigating those two different religions. I think for any reader though, coming to this book, whether really no matter who you are, at some point in our lives, we feel like we're navigating different worlds and trying to figure out
Yeah.
our place in them, whether it's religious, whether it is in our family, in the geography where we live, in our own minds, which is where I tend to battle battle the most. You know, Mariam shows us how you can choose yourself without sacrificing all of those other components as well. It's beautiful book. That's what I'm going to say.
Thank
It's a
you.
beautiful
Thank you.
book.
I mean, that is such a good point, that the work of adulthood is coming into the world with whatever we've picked up from our family systems and figuring out what makes sense in the world that I'm creating. What am I going to carry with me? What am I going to keep?
Yeah.
And, Miriam is doing a lot of the work that a lot of us do much later in life. But like I said, I did that very purposefully to kind of maybe start conversations earlier. Um,
Yeah.
our the evolution of thought of a protagonist is just something that I think inspires all my work. I think a lot of my internal journeys are what drives almost every book I write, and I hope that if anything, it will just make readers a little bit more aware of their interiority. What is your narrative about something? What is your worldview? When Miriam starts, I kind of even had to exaggerate her misbelief in order to make that transition more salient and apparent. So she's got a lot of misbelief. She is really interpreting this world in a knee-jerk way, very right or wrong. But it's an invitation to kind of follow that, to see where she winds up.
Yeah. I'd love to have you expand on that a bit because you mentioned one of your hopes for the book, and I'd love to give the chance for you to think about that broadly. Like, as your book goes out into the world, what is your hope for the book or for the readers who get this book in their hands?
More than anything, I want this to be a conversation starter.
Yeah,
I think that young people are more curious about faith than we give them credit. Whether you believe in religion or not, whether you raised your children in a household with religion or not, um, it surrounds us.
yeah,
Kids are thinking about it. It's in the symbolism and the imagery around us. And they they kids are having conversations on the playground
yeah,
about it, and the adults aren't always there to hear it. And it is a lot of, where tropes and stereotypes get thrown about. It's on the playground. The playground was where my kids always came back saying, mom, somebody said something about Muslims being terrorists. And, that started way, my oldest is 23 and my youngest is 15. And it spanned the entire trajectory
mhm,
of their childhoods with these comments. So need, we can't ignore that this is a conversation that young people are having. So, just like we're working really hard to give children the tools to understand ethnic differences, racial differences, this needs to be in that conversation too. Religious differences, let's give them a little bit more scaffolding to understand how to ask questions about it, and what is the wider narrative about this difference. That we have an idea of equality, all people need to be treated the same. And we need to offer something for them as a lens to view religious differences through and to facilitate that conversation. And I think it's problematic in our society because we've made religion a taboo topic. And the way through that is to just allow ourselves to remove some of that taboo, that it is not as personal as we have made it out to be. And it is fair for civil discourse. We can absolutely discuss this. And I think one thing that I said in the book, and that's like the perfect note probably to end this on, that I think the way through is curiosity.
yes.
It is always okay to be genuinely curious and interested in another person's ideas and belief systems, and just to invite that in, to be curious and to learn more about each other.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's a good place to start anyway.
Yeah, and the fact that it is couched within this story of, well, I know they're fictional people, but they are, at least Mariam is part based in your experience. But in my world, the fictional characters I read, they become friends. They are real. I talk about them. I know them. And there is something about doing that so-called work. I guess if I call it work, I don't want to make it seem like something that is a drudgery to do, but having those conversations, being curious, learning, there's something about a story that allows us to access it and lean into it in a way that just feels good at the same time. And your book gives both of those.
Oh, I can't thank you enough for saying that. As you can tell, it's a story really close to my heart.
Mhm.
So when somebody gets what I was trying to do with it, it's just tremendously satisfying. And I appreciate you so much for taking the time to read and to connect with the story so deeply.
Oh, it was my pleasure, trust me. Where is the best place that listeners can find you so that they can, of course, get access to your book, but keep up with whatever else might come their way with you?
My website is my name, hudaalmarashi.com, and you can find me on Instagram under the same name. I do have Facebook and Twitter pages. I'm just not as active on there.
Mhm.
And if for anybody who is located in San Diego, I am having a launch event at Warwick's Bookstore on February 24th at 7:30, and I would love to meet any of your listeners that this happens to reach.
Oh, I wish I didn't live in New York. To be able
Well,
to.
you would enjoy, I wish I could have you over here just to enjoy our weather.
Yes, me too. Me too.
It is unfairly beautiful in February here.
Well, I'm used to it. I'm not complaining, but it is quite cold here where we are. Thank you so much. This was such a wonderful conversation. It's a beautiful book, and I'm just honored to be part of your launch team to put it out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, and listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of KidLit Love, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the KidLit Love podcast. You'll find links to all of the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. You'll also find KidLit Love on Substack. That's where you'll find posts for each episode, monthly KidLit roundups, and an invitation to join my summer book club and go deeper into the world of children's literature. And if you loved this podcast and want more, you might like to listen to my other podcast called Get Literate. It's a podcast that explores all things books and reading, notebooks and writing to build a life you love. One more thing. If you loved what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish community of KidLit Love. Thanks for listening.